Hello and welcome to one more game from the group stage of the Learn Dota 2 League Season 12. It's not 10, do not believe this thing's lies.
Yeah, it's just hasn't been updated.
This is not a live broadcast because, unfortunately, despite my many talents, like doing this and like 3 other things, we aren't able to split ourselves up and be at multiple places at the same time.
I do play Arc Warden, but I'm not him physically, so
Yeah.
I can't make my Tempest double do the other games.
Also, Ocelot is definitely here with us, and if you can't hear him right now, it just means you're crazy.
Yeah, it's your fault.
It's just like the opposite of an imaginary friend. So, Tupac versus Panic at the Rosh Pit. Here we go. This is gonna be good, I think. And as you can see here, it is definitely replay. Okay, we have not been spoiled as to who the winner of this is, so...
I've been very conscious about avoiding spoilers.
That's a great point, Ocelot. Amazing how you're
Yeah.
able to make such a good point before anything's really happened.
Radiant team back.
Wyvern, first ban. What does that tell you?
It tells me that maybe there's gonna be some kind of illusion-based hero.
Yeah, illusion-based, or somebody who just does ludicrous amounts of alpha damage in a short window. Somebody like a Sven, somebody like a PA. Especially somebody who doesn't like to build BKB, and PA would definitely fall in the latter. We also got Dawnbreaker banned by the same side by Panic. Tupac takes out Ember.
Currently in the meta right now, kind of the flavor of the meta illusion heroes are Naga, Spectre, Terrorblade. Take your pick.
Terrorblade would certainly be a good reason to pick Wyvern, so...
Yeah, because he's super squishy.
On the other hand, Tupac is just kind of getting rid of a lot of just big AoE, you know, make the team fight a disaster kind of heroes, which doesn't really say much, I don't think. Willow up first on Panic at the Rosh Pit. I do feel like Willow's a bit better as like a second pick than a first, but she's certainly not, you know, untenable as a first pick.
Just a solid support pick right now.
She doesn't really counter anybody, but she's not really countered by anybody, and even if she was, it's probably not worth picking around. It's definitely a hero, though, that needs a lot of good execution, and if you don't have good execution, you're not going to do so well with her. Be interesting to see how it goes.
See what they pick into that.
You think they're going to pick Grimstroke for Inkswell, or pick him for his ult? I noticed people who pick Grimstroke for his ult are starting to come back now, like they're doing it again.
I think Inkswell's pretty nerfed, so I mean, we'll see, I suppose.
You know, it's the same issue with as Batrider mid with Grimstroke picking Grimstroke around his ult. Centaur Warrunner does not really combo great with Grimstroke, but he goes great with
he goes great with Inkswell.
Yeah, it goes great with Inkswell. That might mean they're still focusing on that, or it could mean they're doing some sort of combination of both. We got an early Viper pick by Panic at the Rosh Pit. I'm not usually a fan of an early Viper, to be honest with you.
Viper's reactionary to Centaur, maybe? I don't think it's that good against it, but it's okay against it. I'm not saying it's bad against it, but
yeah. The big thing about Viper is that Viper is kind of a one-trick pony. The second that you have some ability to either out-damage him or have him consistently silence his BKB as an up-in, you don't want to be buying a BKB as Viper anyway unless you absolutely have to. Viper's just out of the game, and notably he has a few counters out there in the wild. You might notice, the second after they pick Viper, they immediately knocked out Lifestealer. I would not be surprised if Jug goes out soon as well, since he also can pretty much just say, you know, absolutely not to Willow.
10 seconds remaining.
And he goes fairly well with Grimstroke, at least as far as Inkswell goes. Sniper gets knocked out.
That's double assassinates, I guess.
Yep, double assassinate, and has a very good ability to punish people who are, you know, trying to run two different ways with a Grimstroke ult, which is something that's just inevitably going to happen sometimes when it's on you. Yep. TA getting knocked out. With Tinker on the other side, Tinker is just always a good ban right now. You never want to see him on the other team, so if you don't want him, get rid of him, basically.
Pretty much.
even after the ban, there's not really a compelling reason to just let him stick
10
around,
seconds
especially if you
remaining.
think he can mess with your comp in any way, so not a bad idea, though I might have picked
5
him,
seconds
actually, myself
remaining.
on this draft. TA going
Templar
down.
Assassin Tinker. So
Radiant
they're looking
team
for a glass cannon mid, like a mid hero that does lots of damage but is very susceptible to being killed.
Right. You might see like a Quap or a Shadow Fiend get banned next on that same
Yeah.
same idea. Lich goes down on the other side. They do not want to
10
see that
seconds
double Lich
remaining.
ult, and I cannot blame them. It's nasty stuff.
5 seconds remaining.
I don't know how well Lich would fit in with this comp
Radiant
otherwise,
team
but that alone is like enough value to pick or ban him.
Got
On the other hand, Luna 2 goes down, yeah. Could even be Luna 1. I mean, they don't want to see her in either lane.
Well, the Luna too. The Luna as well.
Yeah,
Is what I
yeah,
mean.
yeah. Well, I mean, it
10
works both.
seconds
It works both
Yeah,
ways.
that's
They
true.
knocked out another glass cannon mid, and they just could potentially knocked out
seconds
Luna in the
remaining.
lane itself.
I was thinking they might have picked a glass cannon mid is what I was getting at, because those heroes melt people very fast.
Right. And they are themselves glass cannons, I would say. Maybe with the exception of Templar if you don't have anything for her in particular, but
Sure,
they have
yeah.
Viper, so you know. The if they're looking for a glass cannon mid though, they don't have too many left. Maybe like, I guess you could call Puck. Funnily enough, it is 2 Puck. One of those, I would say you could call Quap one of those, and she's certainly still in the meta. It seems like the one consistent factor in Dota. You know, it's been the case since she was added in like Dota 1. It'll be the case when the sun burns out. Quap is always going to be around.
Ogre.
Ogre Magi is an interesting little pick. He goes fairly well with Grimstroke. I mean, 2 high multicast ignites is a lot of damage on a lot of
Yeah,
places.
Not to
10
mention,
seconds remaining.
double Fire Blast. Multicast didn't double, if he gets the
5
eggs.
seconds remaining.
Double Fire Blasts.
Yeah,
Kinda
it's a
nasty.
lot. Of course, he also goes well with the general theme of the team so far, which is basically lots of CC, lots of slow.
Yep.
They want everybody to be as miserable as possible. They want everybody to be standing still as much as possible, which means they're probably going to eschew a more traditional sort of team fight hero. Like, you're probably not going to see an Enigma, say, on 2 Puck at this
Dire
point.
team pick.
Panic at the Rosh Pit, though, is no stranger to picking a more conventional sort of team fight hero. Picks up Warlock
It's
here.
Warlock.
Warlock and Viper is actually a surprisingly nasty combination. And Spectre sure doesn't help that fact because, you know, Fatal
yeah.
Bonds with that Viper ult is a lot of damage to a lot of people, and Fatal Bonds with the Spectre ult especially is, oh man, that's nasty.
That's
That's,
your advertised illusion hero.
yep, that's
10
everybody
seconds
taking a
remaining.
million damage in no time flat. So,
5
it can help.
seconds remaining.
I assume it's gonna be an Ag Spectre.
Could be. The big thing I will say is that the most interesting thing about the Warlock Spectre combination is that Warlock is one of the heroes that I would say effectively allows Spectre to actually participate in more early fights because, you know, she just can get hit hard and just do a million damage. Tupac
Correspond
believes
with an
that,
illusion hero of their own.
yep, Tupac believes one good illusion hero deserves another. They pick up Phantom Lancer. Panic at the Rosh Pit might be in a bit of a tough position here as they've actually banned most of the good responses that are out there to Phantom
10
Lancer.
seconds remaining.
Earthshaker's in the pool, as is
Yep.
Axe.
5
But that's
So
it.
those are
seconds
two
remaining.
very good cards to peel.
And Tupac could very easily get rid of those in this time.
Yeah, definitely.
So they're walking on an edge here. They might be a little hoist by their own draft or bans, as it were. And Tupac's considering it. Tupac is putting a lot of thought into what they're banning next, as you can see here.
5 seconds remaining. Dire team back.
Take out a Void Spirit. Void Spirit is
Radiant
another
team
one of the big PL counters, so no surprise to see him go.
No
course.
Puck.
Yeah, no Puck. You know, can't let that name come true. Of course, there are a couple of interesting things at play here. You know, one being, what is Viper? What is Viper on this draft?
Right, he's kind of a flex pick, I feel.
He
You
could
can
be
do-
one. He could be
Yeah.
one. He's probably not. He
5
could be two.
seconds
He could be
remaining.
three, very easily. And depending on what position he is, means that Panic at the Rosh Pit could respond with a lot of different solutions. Tupac seems to believe that Viper is actually three here, and they've picked two pause twos that counter PL, but he might be three. Well, they think he's three, rather. He might be two, and
Yeah.
if that's the case, you could still see, say, an Earthshaker pop up here, or even
Right.
an Earth Spirit, who's also somebody you don't want to mess with as PL.
10 seconds remaining. 5 seconds remaining.
It'll be interesting. I think a lot hinges on this last pick for Panic. They've got a lot of pieces of puzzle here. Tupac also has an advantage here in the very last pick because I feel like Panic is going to need to counter PL, which means that they're not going to be able to even really think about what Tupac's going to be bringing last.
Right.
It's a good draft strategy by D3 Code, who's on top on Tupac. Good draft strategy. He's really put Panic in kind of a pickle, really. They haven't really been reactive so far, and now there's somebody on the board that forces them to be reactive.
Battery, yeah. I'll go
And
for the
Axe
X.
is there.
So it's a 2 Viper.
Yep. I think the Axe pick here is potentially they're trying to think of, okay, if we do Earthshaker, Earthshaker's going to be good against PL, and he's not going to have anything to do with the rest of our team,
10
basically.
seconds
Yeah.
remaining.
And the X more cleanly fits into like a
5
Warlock
seconds
ulti.
remaining.
Right.
A
He
Spectre
cleanly
ulti,
fits in the
Viper,
Warlock.
W.
He's not gonna, like, a Fisher would hurt Panic about as much as it would Tupac in the right spot, because Tupac has a lot of options to deal with it. Panic has Spectre who can walk over it, and that's it. And they've
Yep.
got two very position-heavy heroes in Willow and Warlock, and
Yeah,
Spectre
only
as
one
well,
of
if
those
the dagger goes
heroes
down.
tends to buy Blink in the Willow. Viper and Warlock don't like that item.
Right. So, Earthshaker is really not an option for them there. So I think Axe is better with their team, and I think there's also some thought in what Tupac's doing last year. It's going to be hard to say. I actually could not call what Tupac's going to take. I'm pretty confident it's going to be a mid, but who is the question?
The Quap.
Remaining.
It
Alright.
was Quap.
Your hero.
I
like
guess.
it. And Panic has some nasty AoE lineup. They do a lot of damage in fights, especially if X gets a good call. You get, you know, the Viper W dumped on you. You get golems dropped on your head. You get a Spectre ulti coming in, and all of Willow's stuff.
And Willow also has a great kit for keeping you just around to make it happen. You got the pit from Willow, not the pit, but you've got the big field of spikes from the Willow. You've got Viper who slows you. You got Warlock who slows you. Even Spectre slows you, and Axe makes you stand still in a big circle around them. So they got a lot of AoE. The question is, are they going to be able to actually get Puck in that AoE? Puck's got a lot of guys who do not like standing close to each other. They have a very
Yep.
a
A
very
lot of dodge ability as well.
right, a lot of dodge abilities and a very sort of contemporary meta. There's not really going to be a quote-unquote line in Tupac for most fights. It's going to be, you know, PL maybe with Centaur by him is going to be in the midst of the fight beating people up. Ogre Magi, Grim are going to be on the sidelines, and Quap is going to be doing whatever she wants, wherever she wants, basically. So it's going to be tough to get them in a formation, but if they can get that timing down, they can do a lot of damage real quick. They're two very interesting comps. It's going to be very interesting to see how the execution goes.
Yeah.
Warlock's little lantern thing he's got with this set really looks like something Rubik would be carrying around.
Yeah. Alright, here we go. Game
Let's
one.
do a roll call, because I think you can be a little bit more confident on this team comp than you've been able to with the last. So, on pause 5 on 2 Puck is the Mighty Midget playing Grimstroke. On Phantom Lancer is D3 Code, who is the captain of the team. So that's interesting. A pause 1 captain. You know, 2 in this league, which is 2 more than I've seen through most of my life, basically.
Yeah.
Of Crafty Potato is our position 3 player on Puck. He is Centaur Warrunner in this game. Max is Pause 4 on Ogre Magi, and finally our Pause 2, Tallballz. It's a very interesting name. If your balls are tall, please see a doctor.
Yeah.
On the dire, we have Boss, the team captain, in position, I believe, 4. Could be 4 here.
4 or 5, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
On
Yeah, I
support,
think Warlock's 5, yeah, you're right.
Warlock, Comrade Chris,
Warlock
very,
might be in a little trouble.
yeah,
You're just gonna poke him.
yeah. They don't really have enough ability to follow on him, and he's going to be able to heal anyway if he takes his W, so they do not want to press that.
You just did that.
Comrade Chris, a very frequent contributor and poster in the LD2L Discord server, so shoutouts to him. Niatic, I believe that's how it's pronounced, apologies if I get it wrong, on Spectre as Panic's position 1. Axe is the banana stand, that's their Pause 3, Boss is indeed the Pause 4, and finally their Pause 2, Trash Boat, certified. I wonder where you go to get a Trash Boat certification.
The Trash Boat Shop.
Oh, they do it there? That's pretty convenient. Lanes are pretty much the expected sort of divide here. We're not going to have any Rosh Rider sort of shenanigans this time around, baby. Very sort of conventional.
Nice contemporary lane phase.
And as I said before, sometimes predictable isn't necessarily wrong. It's good to be unpredictable when you should, but no reason to be here. Viper focusing very heavily on trying to burst down Quap early on in lane, trying to make sure she can't comfortably stay close to this. It's gonna be it's gonna be incumbent on Quap to get levels really quickly in this lane, because if Viper beats her to 6, that's it, she's dead, basically. And the reverse isn't even
I think
necessarily
she can
true.
blink away, but
Well, she can blink away, but
she's quick enough.
the problem is it's like an existential sort of threat, you know? When Viper's 6, it means that she just simply cannot get too low, or else it's just over for her, which means that her life bar basically gets de facto cut in half, you know?
Yep.
She could theoretically pop out and go back to spawn if she's in a good enough position, but how often is she going to be in a good enough position, especially with Trashbow putting all this offense on her tower?
Yep, super pressuring her.
Speaking of super pressure, looks like super pressure might be the Panic way of playing. Oh, I missed first blood. I'm getting kicked off the TI desk. I apologize. Of course, luckily, since this is not actually a
He just
live
got
game,
run down by Battle Hunger, I'd assume.
we can actually go back and see what
That's
happened here. And
yeah.
just got run over by Battle Hunger. This is a pretty nasty combination. The biggest downside of Axe at his early levels is until he gets his Q maxed, he doesn't have a really great way to make you stand still and actually fight him.
Willow solves that problem.
Yeah, solves it very well, and has the ability to do some additional damage with that Shadow Realm attack, so fits in for that rather well. So there we go, using the power of editing and replay magic, it's like we never missed first blood at all. Apologies
That was
for
almost a
folks.
PL kill too. If he landed that bramble on him, I think he might have died.
Could have. They were both fairly low on mana though, so... Well, Willow was fairly low on mana, and Axe was fairly low on having abilities off cooldown. The thing I was saying before that went down was the name of the game, and I think that also definitely applies at bot here. The name of the game for Panic appears to be Pressure. They're definitely being very aggressive. They're playing very, very furiously, really, this early on, trying to make landing as much of a problem for Tupac as possible. Big Inkswheel there, he might be dead.
Again. Yeah, he's definitely dead.
Wow. Very, very, very close to surviving there. You just barely got him. So what you want to see is Axe. Now what he really wants to see probably is a kill on Phantom Lancer. Phantom Lancer appears to, yep, he was trying to mess up this little pull that the captain's pulling off.
Did successfully mess it up.
Mm-hmm. Mid appears to be largely stalemate so far. Axe actually on top for last hits. Viper is, well, no, actually, Viper is pretty heavily taking it to Quap here at mid. If you look at the last
yeah.
hits chart, he is up 16-4. He is 4 times her last hits, which to some degree isn't that surprising given how, you know, he's been focusing heavily on using his nether toxin to big effect. But to another degree, he's just really just playing aggressive. Perhaps more aggressive than 2Puck is used to dealing with, 2Puck's players. There's a lot of aggression.
Viper has one goal in mind, is just stop Queen of Pain from having any fun.
Right, he's got almost a pause 3 sort of mentality here in mid. It's, even though there's a lot of aggression in this meta in general, there's not usually, like, these sort of insane, like, high pressure, high intensity lane phases right now, so I would say 2Puck's probably at least a little out of practice with it.
Oh, he's just gonna get run down again.
Things are not going great for Grimstroke right now. He's really got
Lane is
nothing
so
to offer,
nasty.
I think. Well,
If you get caught on a bramble, you're just dead. It's literally as simple as that.
he desperately needs to get that Phantom's Embrace. Neither of the two guys can deal with it that effectively. Actually, he desperately needs to pick that up here. I think at this point you could say part of the reason it's going so poorly for him is delaying the leveling of it so long. I think that goes to what I was kind of getting at earlier, is that, you know, being unused to this sort of environment means that perhaps 2Puck does not have at least not here, a game plan in mind for, you know, what do we do when the Spurs are being taken to us like Panic is doing to them.
Yep.
Got a little bit of a downtime here. Quap has had to completely retreat from lane up here for obvious reasons. If she gets too close, even if she has blink up, Viper is 6, and she could die very quickly, very easily, especially without the being able to have the threat.
Oh, this might be bad.
Nope.
Okay. Blinks away in time.
He's waiting.
Inches away from getting a kill.
He wants to make absolute sure that his wave is not being messed up by the tower here. He's going to be hitting this catapult.
Oh no. Bramble didn't hit.
Nope.
That's the good news.
Fortunately for Viper, Quap wisely was able to keep the tower, you know, basically protected until the creep wave arrived, able to mess with that equilibrium so that he didn't get behind like he wanted to. Now he's taking it out on top. He's taking a very strong, hard look at top here, thinking about either Centaur, Warrunner, or Ogre Magi. Declines to take the curve.
He's gonna find him here. Yep. Viper Strike.
Centaur Warrunner's having none of this. He's just out of here.
Alright, good TP.
So is Viper. Returns to mid though with no mana, so Quap's going to be able to at least somewhat have some free farm for a while.
Right, I think he can bottle up if he really needs to, but he's gonna chew on a clarity as well.
Spectre here at top is actually rather low, but nobody is home for her right now, which is good for her. Oh, accidentally teleports to the tower that she is standing right next to and must now take the walk of shame all the way back home.
That's sad.
Very unfortunate. Hate when that happens.
Oh, Bramble.
Grimstroke,
X
hey,
isn't quite
too far here. He's gonna get a courier for
Oh, the
free,
courier.
Has been killed.
The Axe is just a
He's fine.
little
Just
too
make it
far.
Middle tower is under attack.
Did not take much interest in this. Axe no longer cares about Grimstroke. Axe is caring more about the other guy.
Dire's
Yep,
top
fair.
tower is under attack.
Maybe 2 degrees on farm as well. Certainly is not a bad idea.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
Oh, the haunt.
The revenants of my people.
I will buy.
Alright.
Dire's top tower is under attack. Dire's
Yeah,
structures are fortified.
He's making those kind of calls, you know. But
Radiant structures are fortified.
that's true.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
Yeah. Some banter.
Radiant's middle tower has fallen. Radiant's bottom
That's a
tower
shame.
is under attack.
You're gonna put heavy pressure on the bot tower in response here. Oh yeah, sure. My bad.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
Visibility.
Radiant's bottom tower has fallen.
They're just gonna go top. They have Spectre. She's pretty hurt. Oh, take her down. Oh no.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack. Dire's top tower is under
Yep.
attack.
Yeah, they killed the Spectre, that's always important.
Dire's top tower is under attack. Dire's top tower is
Right.
It's a big confidence play. Also, nobody heard any of that because I believe I was muted for a little bit. Oops, sorry about that, folks. What I was
that's fine.
saying
Dire's
was
top tower is under attack.
that, you know, that was a big victory for Radiant on the psychological level, as well as the, you know, the more literal interpretation of it. Axe staying bot to try and knock out that T2 made his own team a little bit less confident to go in. Oh,
Oh
Wop
dear.
is dead here. We might have Centaur down as well. You know, they realized, you know, the last fight didn't go so well for them. Wanted to make it right back up, and right back up it quite was. Made,
Yeah,
I
they smelt
suppose.
them both.
Radiant's middle tower is
Was,
under attack.
You know, a good trade for Radiant by that tower, but once they got what they were after, Panic sure punished him for it. You know, just made the message clear. We ain't gonna stand for it. We ain't gonna stick around. We are going to fight you and knock you down if you try to take our objectives. It's not a bad message to be getting out with people. You know, it's not a bad message to be saying, "Oh, listen, you know, if you try to push, we're gonna punish you for your push." And yeah, sure,
Radiant's top
sometimes
tower
we
is
might
under
lose a few
attack.
people for it, but if you push, you're not gonna do it unopposed. At first, you might lose some lives, you might lose some net worth, you might have some pain. It doesn't go well for you sometimes, but you make that message clear enough, it makes people think twice before they do it. It makes people waste some time saying, okay, can I get that undefended T2, or do we need to all get together? Do we need to make sure the wave equilibrium is good? Do we need to make sure we have this last item, or Aegis, or what have you?
Yeah.
It's an important
Go
little
smoke
factor.
up on the Willow for whatever play she wants to make next.
She's rather low. She's probably going to wait a little while before she makes it.
Hey, you'd think, yeah.
Notably, Willow getting a Spirit Vessel up pretty quickly. Radiant doesn't really have many methods of healing, nor are they particularly likely to get Mechanism, but being able to just blow up HP region like that still means quite
Yeah, it
a
hurts
lot here.
Centaur. It hurts Ogre too, to a decent degree.
Right. Especially with Centaur having this Vanguard, you know, definitely going to be building a lot of HP region heart later on. That does a lot for that sort of thing. Viper is invisible. He's looking for trouble. Passes in front of a Radiant Sentry Ward though, and I think he realizes that somehow.
Yep.
That or he just simply did not care about being invisible. Who's to say? One notable thing is that perhaps due to the fight at top, Dire is now taking their time a little bit here. They're now taking it a little slower, perhaps trying to now ensure, rather than just strictly keeping the pressure on, that Spectre keeps getting the farm that she desperately needs. You know, every
Yep.
Spectre needs farm. There's just no exception to that rule.
Oh boy, the Warlock ulti.
Golem comes out. Does not look like it's actually going to do very much, though. The Centaur ult gets eaten in large part, but he still manages to get out. He still has enough of it to escape, but Axe
Oh, boy.
finds PL in the jungle, takes him out. Centaur wants to go for round 2. It might not be advisable for him, but Axe is just stunned forever, and he goes down. The rest of Dire is not eager to clean up after him.
He missed the dunk on the PL. It would have gone so much better if that had hit
Radiant's middle tower
just a
is
little
under
bit
Right.
above the threshold.
Missed a dunk on PL, and as well, Dire found themselves without a 5th man once again. It's notable. I think this is going to be an issue for Dire for Panic if they don't resolve it very quickly. I feel like sometimes they perhaps rather than underestimating the enemy's abilities, because I don't think anybody is quite mean enough to be doing that. I think there's some overestimation of Dire's like own heroes, of their like own strength as a team at this point. I don't mean like team play. I mean their strength as their individual heroes at this
Yeah.
point. They're trying to take a lot of fights that they should be taken as 5 with just 4, without necessarily using the 5th guy for anything particularly, great, right? So as a result, they're having some fights where they're just kind of down a man for not really a very compelling reason.
Smoke. Gonna find.
Radiant are
We got
scanning.
Centaur here.
Centaur.
They really want Centaur. Missed the call, and he is just gone.
Oh,
And that's
That's a
his
shame.
smoke. Tallballz calls 2Puck to get back, and they've already done so by the time he even says it. That is how that smoke went. Centaur was definitely at least vaguely thinking that that was a possibility. Centaur was definitely had at least a little bit of spidey
Trigger
sense.
for that ult.
Yep. Definitely had a little bit of the spidey sense for smoke coming in, so good on him for that. Could potentially be that it got caught, I don't know. Viper has travels already. That's very
Does.
interesting.
I don't have a
And
stun for this.
PL wants
Just
no
gonna get right out.
part in this. One big issue that the Dire might have for a while, actually, is that while they have a lot of slow, they don't really have a lot of stun. Yep.
I think Willow is gonna buy a Eul Scepter. They usually do on this hero.
Right. You got
So
Willow.
that'll mitigate that problem a little bit.
Willow has a load of stun, but Willow is one person. Warlock
Yeah.
has the Golem, but not really anything else when that's down. And Axe has Call, but again, Axe is one person. That's a pretty short-ranged CC, so being able to teleport or move a little bit during some of these attacks is going to give Radiant a lot of edge to get out of tricky situations for a while. Dire's looking to change the strategy a little bit here. Rather than strictly going for kills, they're trying to force a fight out around this tower. Grimstroke actually looking a
Nope,
little
they
low.
can Right there.
What'd you say now?
Said they melted him. There was just a few auto attacks from Viper. It's most of his HP.
Right, Viper's doing a lot of damage at this point.
Oh boy.
You got a lot of
The
ults down.
Centaur, the 3-man Willow stun was sick though.
Yep, we had a big Centaur ult, but that Centaur ult was going down on almost on Willow alone. They dropped a lot on her. Figured everybody was right on top of her head. Was not actually the case. Dire was waiting for a response there. It was a good play by Dire. Willow effectively sort of baited out their ults, and then Dire absolutely smashed them for it. They took the pause 2. PL got away again, but they took the pause 2, and they're taking a tower for it, so that's certainly not a fight that anybody could call a failure for Panic at the Panic at the Rosh Pit. There we go. I was gonna say Rosh Pit, but then I was like, wait a minute, is it Panic at the Dire? Because that would match Disco a little better. Oh well. I guess it wouldn't make much sense. Uh-oh. Now that's bad. PL's been called. He's right in the middle of everybody he shouldn't be, but once again he's able to get that
that's not
TP
there.
out. Feel like that could have potentially gone a little differently if Viper had put down his ult earlier. But it's hard to say. You can certainly see why he would not want to do that. Dark Willow owes us all. So if you ever need a loan with low interest, just ask Dark Willow, because she owes us.
They're definitely exploiting the fact that they can just TP away from anything practically once the call is out very well.
Oh yeah. They are very frequent Brigand's Blade coming out on the Radiant Jungle item set. That's always big to see. They are definitely exploiting the TP ability very well. Radiant has definitely figured out its weakness in the comp, and they are using it to their best ability.
Yep.
One important factor of that is that it's going to mean that ultimately, Dire are going to start needing Dark Willow to be a lot more present and a lot more sort of little ganks and encounters, meaning that her capacity to do other things is going to be diminished significantly as the game starts to go on. Especially after BKB start coming out. You know for a fact that there's going to definitely be BKBs on the Radiant to some degree at some point. I mean, they have a lot of... Oh! Dark Willow. Went a bridge too far here.
Good call though.
The Dire backs up Willow here. They get a lot of big ults off. Quap dies again. Has not been great for her these last few minutes. Warlock Golem tries to come out, gets stunned at the last second though. Centaur Warrunner is now going to gladly and gleefully eat the death. The rest are Radiant though. They might not.
You want Viper?
Yeah, they desperately want Viper, but PL goes down for it. PL picks just too much of a fight. Axe punishes him, sends him to the grave. That was not good by any stretch of the imagination for Radiant. That was a disaster.
Those calls are so brutal.
Yeah, Axe is definitely Dax is definitely a frequent Axe player. You can definitely see that in how he plays. When he calls well. He calls a lot of people, and he calls the right targets. He actually saved call to a degree in that fight for when PL showed up. And that's just smart play. Axe knows his target priority. He's doing good. So shoutouts to the banana stand. You're a good Axe, buddy.
Viper was for sure dead if he didn't call PL there, because he has a diff blade.
Yeah, he sure does. And Viper really does not have a great ability to stand up to diff blade. You know, he just kind of blows up in the face of it. Warlock sends his golem out to die, just taking a chunk out of the tower. Luckily, does not actually go down to anybody, so does not send Radiant any money for doing so. Looks like we got more of a little fight in the Radiant Triangle here. Dark Willow and Axe versus most of the Radiant. They do not actually want to take this. More Dire folks are showing up. Spectre's definitely expressed interest. Quap links back in again. Finally gets one working out for us. She takes out Dark Willow very casually, and Dire just has to retreat. They have nothing to say anymore in response to this.
Good Centaur stun. Pretty much just inerted that entire engagement.
Right. The Dire just had to basically just stand back because they weren't able to get Spectre there, and they certainly... It was a good idea to not get Spectre there. She shouldn't have been risked, so...
Spectre picked up an Orchid here.
She sure is. If I'm guessing, she's picking up the Orchid in a specific attempt to counter Quap. They've made countering Quap a very focal point of their strategy so far. Though notably, I will also say they haven't made quite so much of an attempt to counter PL. Perhaps they're putting all their eggs into the Axe basket for that, which wouldn't exactly be a bad idea, per se.
I like Ags plus Orchid, actually. You can just... Once Spectre gets fat enough, she can just pick a person to kill, and they're dead.
Right. Again, it's probably, for Quap specifically, speaking of Quap, she's been found here.
Oh boy.
Gets silenced, gets called, that Orchid is now complete. Gets silenced, gets called, gets absolutely creamed. Quap herself buys an Orchid, perhaps in protest of this event. Meanwhile, Ogre Magi just casually getting knocked over by magic damage from Viper. While there was no stun on him, in fact, Ogre was in the enemy base.
Oh boy.
They just weren't able to stand up to the
Bramble off on
damage.
Grimstroke, he's dead again.
Yep, Bramble on Grimstroke just effectively ends his life. It's just the same problem for him as it was at the beginning of the game. He buys back in an attempt perhaps to dissuade Dire for taking down this tier 2 tower. They do not react to it in the slightest. Got something interesting over here. PL has found Spectre, but does not want to actually fight her. Immediately just TPs out the second she gets bumped into. Very interesting. Yep. Does not want to test whether he can win that fight or not yet, which is not
surrounded.
a bad idea.
Axe.
Oh, Axe misses a call just barely.
Yeah, he held it.
He was assuming that the Bramble was going to hit. It was just waiting to be sure if the Bramble didn't actually go the way he thought it was about to. It's not great. At this point, you could say reasonably that PL is almost the Radiant team, basically. He is their hope.
Yeah.
He is their ticket out of this joint because it is 519 right now. It's almost 1/4 of the enemy's kills, right? So they're going to need a big carry, a lot of money to dig them out of this scenario. So PL being very cautious about his playstyle right now is definitely to his credit.
And they also have to be able to have him be big enough to contest Spectre directly.
Yeah, Spectre is definitely a hard target to face, and I would say, unluckily for PL, I would say she kind of scales a little better than him. So she's going to, or he's going to have to build very specifically to counter her, and he's going to have to farm very well to counter her, especially given the fact that to this point, Spectre has been able to basically just kind of farm just completely untouched.
Yeah.
She doesn't actually have the highest amount of last hits in the server, but I would bet you anything. Oh wow, no, actually Viper is still topping her for net worth, but I doubt that's going to last particularly long.
Well,
Viper's also getting a BKB and very soon. It's very
gonna poke
interesting.
poke the high ground here.
Yeah, they're poking at high ground. Radiant is making a bit of a response, but they're also
Center
going to split up.
I think the center ulti was to try to initiate on Spectre at top lane.
Yeah, they tried to get Spectre at top, but they actually did not even get her. That Centaur ult more or less just kind of went to waste there. The tower down bot is still just getting hammered.
They're still
Viper-
poking. This is a really good push actually because it forces PL to sort of respond to it, or else he's gonna lose the game, you know, and he does not want to respond to it right now.
Oh, for sure. Spectre's come in. Goodbye, Quap. She is just dead instantly. Spectre has built so hard around countering Quap that she really can't do much. And I should also point out, Viper got his shard before this push started, and he just used it to completely melt the tower. Even this early, you know, Viper was just able to completely demolish this thing, and Radiant is going to lose a Rax for 3. That is not a good sign for Tupac by any stretch.
Yeah, they called PL's bluff successfully there.
Mm-hmm. He wasn't actually willing or ready to fight them. He knew, I think, to a good degree. If he did decide to try and take the fight to them and it didn't go well, if he tried to take the fight to them and he lost, that was just the ball game for him.
Yeah. Whereas here, you know, you lose a pair of Rex, that's bad. That's very bad, you might even say, but PL lives to fight another day.
Right. They lose a few people in the process. I would actually say that the losing the few people in the process at this point might actually have been a little bigger than losing the Rax. Because, you know, the Rax, frankly, were going to go down anyway at this point. You know, a team fight thrown away. You know, thrown is a bad word to say in this context because, you know, throw has a different connotation here. So let's just say a fight lost wouldn't mean a Rax that goes down anyway. But they had the unfortunate... happening there that they couldn't even get as close as they thought to that happening. They just ended up melting, basically.
Take Rosh on here. Quite fittingly, you know, team name.
You know, Mao Zedong once said, lose land, you know, land can be retaken. Lose men, you'll lose both land and men to follow. And they lost both their men and their land. It's not a great position to be in. Rosh goes down while I'm talking about Mao Zedong, and Viper ends up taking the Aegis for it. Dire's smoking out. They're hungry for it. They're looking for kills. They attach a bunch of Fatal Bonds to Grimstroke, though luckily for him, he does not actually take terribly much for it.
He's gonna poke high ground again.
Taking the outpost. They're kind of culminating that strategy that they were using even as far back as in lane. They are putting as much pressure as possible in as many places as possible. They're trying to force Radiant to just freak out, make a harsh and rash decision.
Yep.
Viper is silenced. Viper is got every debuff on him in the world, but he does not care. He does not give one. He is still just assaulting that tower.
Yep.
You know, briefly looking back, just waiting for another wave to arrive. But I guarantee you, the next wave that arrives, he's just gonna go right back to just casually right-clicking the thing. Once again, everybody dropping everything imaginable on Viper. Centaur comes out to face him. Centaur does not like what he sees besides, oh no, Axe with a Culling Blade there.
Really dunk.
Quap screams into the fight, but basically just screams in the abyss.
Oh, Spectre's just melting them all.
Yep. I don't even think Spectre was necessarily doing that much damage to everybody. She just had the lucky happenstance at this point of just getting all those kills. You can actually see her damage at this point isn't terribly great, but boy, it sure was more than enough there. You know, for a carry that usually comes on at around 50 to 60, she's doing a lot of damage for 30 at the very least, and I think getting a triple is great.
This Ag's Spectre build can actually go online a lot earlier than Spectres usually do. That's GG.
Tupac calls GG, and we are done here at only 30 minutes. This has been, I believe, the shortest game we've seen in this series so far.
Yeah.
That's the ball game, and I think it's kind of an open case. Panic at the Rosh Pit gets the victory, and well, it's hard to say they didn't deserve it. They played pretty well here.
Just a slaughterhouse, really.
Right. So, what do you say to a match that was 5-27? You start by saying this. To Tupac's credit, they were doing the right thing for being the 5 and 5-27. They were playing like a down team should be playing. They were playing with the idea that it's going to be down to Phantom Lancer to turn it around. They were playing with the idea that they needed to buy as much space as possible to help turn it around. Though there was one flaw in their game plan. I think it ended up being a quite fatal flaw. The thing I mentioned earlier at around 20 minutes about how Spectre had been effectively just kind of farming freely for most of the game, just popping occasionally into fights with her ult and just doing it pretty much without anybody doing anything to her. I think that was kind of a missed opportunity for Tupac. I think a big thing that would have helped them out there would have been to make the occasional venture, and especially having vision at the very least, but making the occasional venture into the dire jungle to at least harass her out of it and chase her home and make her waste a bunch of GPM in doing so. You know, one very good strategy I actually feel like they could have used here would be to try and just get a load of sentries and just try to block off as much of the dire jungle as possible and just force them to waste a load of time on blocking everything. And sure, that's time that they're not using themselves, but as long as PL himself isn't personally present for that, it really does not matter to a certain degree. You know, if Centaur Warrunner is farming, it really does not matter to a degree, certainly, if, like, Ogre Magi is farming, you know? The guy they needed to get money was Phantom Lancer, and he didn't necessarily need to be there. I also do think that the Quap pick ended up being more or less a backfire for them. You know, Quap...
Yeah, she just got melted.
Yeah, Quap walking up to Viper at mid was just not a matchup that she was, you know, willing to face or should have faced. And I do think a lot of it was... I don't think Tupac called a pause 2 Viper. I think they were assuming to the end that it was going to be pause 3, and I think that might have been why they felt confident picking that Quap. But boy... that one didn't go well for her. She really just did not have a major impact on the game. Still, I think Tupac did a lot right. I think there was definitely some room to do more right, but I think they did a lot right for the position they were in, though ultimately they just weren't able to, you know, they weren't able to get past that issue that I pointed out at the very beginning of the game, that the dire strategy of just the constant pressure, that boiling temperature that they were keeping the game at, that constant push, the fights, the towers, at various points all over the map as well. It got to the point they were just starting to split up and just operate in little combat teams of just a couple of people at a time, which is something that the Radiant just never was able to really come up with an effective counter to. And it is a good strategy. It is a competent strategy. When the enemy team showed early on that they really were not prepared for a gameplay style like that. It was definitely good for Panic to do what they did and just double down on it, go as far and hard as they possibly could. And it's very notable that while early on they did suffer some losses in their attempts to do so, and most notably they lost Spectre at one fight early on in the game, eventually it got to a point where they just stopped dying. They actually had just made such a harsh impact on the Radiant, both in allotting themselves space and just allotting themselves so much pressure on the other guys that, you know, the only guy who ever really was very willing to venture out very far on Tupac was Centaur Warrunner, and Phantom Lancer never wanted to fight them at all. And I do
Yeah,
think... Go on.
it's just the game didn't go on long enough for him to even be able to, really. I mean, all he had was Diff-Blade and Manta. It's not really enough to fight SPL confidently,
Right,
especially
but he
like a
didn't.
Spectre.
He didn't even want to pop in and potentially let himself have some room to say just get a casual cleanup kill on somebody. I mean, he was staying as far away from this nonsense as he possibly
Storming the
could.
side
He was in
lanes.
another zip code. It really put a noticeable sort of morale hit on Phantom Lancer's head in particular, and I think they did a good job of just consistently keeping up the job. So yeah, very open and shut sort of game, I think. Not much room for analysis here. It's just Panic at the Rosh Pit showed up with a playbook that Tupac had no answer to, and that was that.
Yep.
What do you think?
Let's hope they find an answer to it in game 2.
They could. If you had one thing to say about Tupac, if you're gonna say, you know, what does Tupac do to turn it around? What's your thought?
I think pick a team that can fight earlier, because this team can fight early, but the problem is their entire team ended up revolving around PL. They need to have that not happen again, because the Rosh Pit strategy is just to, this early constant pressure. Your core is not going to come online in time to be effective if you
Right.
don't get off to a great start.
I mean, they did pick heroes that could perform well early, but the problem is they picked. Weirdly enough, I feel like they picked heroes that can perform well early in the case that they win their respective lanes. Like, Quamp can do a lot of damage in early game team fights, but she has to get a notable victory at mid, and she did not do that today.
No.
I do think one thing that actually could have helped as well would be perhaps more rotations up to mid when Quamp was in particular amounts of trouble. Because it's not like Viper was in positions where he was just unkillable. In fact, that's Viper's biggest weakness, is that when he's on the defensive, he has no tricks aside from just, his corrosive skin, basically.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
He can't slow you because he is slower himself when he's running away to turn around and try and fight you than he is to walk away. And he was not focusing entirely on his slowing abilities. So, to that end, if there was a little bit more pressure on Viper at mid, I think that also could have changed history just a little bit. I don't think it would have been a decisive change, but it would have been a positive change. It would have helped keep them on the map. So, to be blunt, Tupac has some ground to cover between this game and the next. They got to really look at that playbook. They really got to go, okay.
And of course, when a
What would you
game 1
run?
goes like this, it's a morale hit for game 2.
Right.
You're never going to be, rearing to go in to the same team again.
Right. That factor is there as well. I think they're definitely going to have to get that idea out of their head. They're going to have to shake it immediately. Tupac is just going to have to go into the next round saying, yeah, sure, it went this bad this time, but next time, it's not going to be the same comp. It's not going to be the same conditions. There's a lot you can change. It's like Dota is a big butterfly effect. It's a huge butterfly effect. You actually noticed it in the last game we covered, the one we covered live, Rosh Riders versus Twisted Willow, or Willow Twisted Fantasy, as they say in the business. In game 2, Rosh Riders came back, and just a subtle change to their team comp and the way they laned went from a match where they just got, to be blunt, fairly stomped out, where Twisted Willow came in with the right idea and kept hitting them with that idea. They turned it into, a stomp for them. They flipped around the rule book. They made it their own little world. So it is definitely possible to, to overcome that morale hit, to look at that playbook, to say, we got to do it, we got to do it, we got to do it. It'll be interesting to see if Tupac's able to pull it out. So that'll be next time. See you then. Which is like right now, because this is a playlist. We're recording both of these at the same time.
Yep.